What's up, folks? Arctic Skyllus here. Episode 3 of Frag Logic. Guys, ready? Today we have a number of topics to talk about. We're going to start with free-to-play and its rise in the gaming scene for the last couple of years. You guys might be able to hear my daughter in the background.
Right on cue.
Right on cue, as usual. She always likes to kick off the show with a hello. So we ended last week's show. Skyllus and I ended last week's show talking about free-to-play. I'm going to start off with Colin, letting him talk a little bit about this, so you can kick things off.
Yeah, I mean, free-to-play is kind of a broad topic as well, so I think we wanted to kind of talk about it from a wide-sweeping point of view, I guess,
Yeah.
and then narrow it in a bit. Is that what we're going to go for?
Yeah.
All right. So, obviously, for those that don't know or haven't played any free-to-play games, it's kind of undergone a lot of changes recently. You have games like Facebook games like Farmville and that kind of genre, I would say, where traditionally they've always charged for energy or ways to make it so that you can play the game quicker, and that's kind of been the pitch. And then recently there's been a push for cosmetic changes such as League of Legends, where you can just buy skins or characters in that case, but for the most part their business is skins. And then additionally there's games like Blacklight, for instance, which has recently tried to sell weapon customization and rentals and kind of trial periods for guns instead of actually owning them and buying them outright with in-game currency. So all of this kind of culminated in Team Fortress, I guess, would be the big one, which is
The
certainly,
hats.
yeah, I think Team Fortress is the one which
hats.
has sparked the industry as far as, hey, you can actually make money with a free-to-play game. They went from a game that was 4 or 5 years old before they went free-to-play, and then when they made that switch, it just was an insane influx of money from people buying everything. And they've been able to continue support for it all the way up till today, where they still have updates almost every month, it seems like. Large-scale updates, that is. And even people making items for the game and then getting reimbursed, which is, I think, probably the coolest aspect of the free-to-play push recently. And there was a good quote from 2012's GDC panel by Valve's Joe Ludwig, which I thought related a lot to our personal experience with free-to-play, which is, the trouble is, when you're a AAA box game, the only people who can earn new revenue are the people you... The only people who can earn you new revenue are the people who haven't bought your game. This drives you to build new content to attract new people. There's a fundamental tension between building a game to satisfy existing players versus attracting new ones. And I think that's a big reason why, especially as a competitive player who's always asking for updates or patches or developer support after release, that's the reason that a lot of those developers can't do that, because they have to justify spending the money to pick up players who are buying a 4-year-old game.
Right.
And when that entry is $60 or $40 or $30 even, it's too big of a hill to climb in order to get new players that way. So a lot of people just don't update their game past the first 9 months of a large AAA title, where free-to-play games have been able to iterate, and they keep updating and adding new content for the players, and you build these large player bases like League of Legends did over the years. And it's really cool.
Yeah. So, kind of building on what he said with building players and the consistency in this, I actually, before this show, I did just a ton of kind of research into free-to-play. Obviously, the studio that I work for is making a free-to-play title, and I have to know a little bit about. I won't say a little. I have to know a lot about free-to-play. So what I end up doing is checking out a lot of the games in the genre or class of games, and I end up playing them. And so there's like this big rift between, you talk about how developers have this thing where they keep their game up to date, but there's also the negative side of that whole thing, and it's like the pay-to-win model. So there's like two big, huge rifts between, the free-to-play model that we've seen introduced first by some MMOs. That's where it started with MMOs in Korea, and then it kind of moved over to I want to say the first shooter to do it was Battlefield Heroes. It might have been them, but
Quake Live?
it, Quake Live was close.
It's a bit different, though.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. And then you see, like, within the last couple years, a lot of newer titles trying to get every little cent out of them. And I don't want to call out any specific ones. Obviously, you and I have played a lot of free-to-play games in the last couple months. And I immediately noticed someone said Blacklight is pay to win. And after playing that game a lot, I do lean more on the side of, they have the rental system in. And the rental system is kind of there to encourage you to say, okay, well, I played with this gun for X amount of time. Let me purchase it. At the same time, there's like this long grind in order to get a gun or purchase anything in particular. And I think a lot of people that are kind of hesitant about free-to-play are worried about that grind. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to spend that much time to get one or two weapons in a particular game that's free-to-play. It's more like, after I play a couple games, I expect to unlock something, play a couple more games, I expect to unlock something. And I think the developers that are doing it really well keep that low-hanging fruit there for the players to kind of be, I don't want to say, maybe be enticed to, okay, I played a little bit, I have enough money, let me try this out. All right, I like that, I tried that. I don't have quite enough money to get this, but I'm going to go ahead and purchase it, and then I'll save the points that I already have on another weapon or another item that I'll get later. So that's kind of what we're seeing now, and I think that developers are getting a lot more. They're getting a lot better with free to play. I'd say over the last couple of years, there's been a big time improvement in the quality of games that we've seen, the scale. I think when I say scale, I think PlanetSide is a pretty good example of that. Obviously, MMOs are really big in terms of just grand scale and having that free-to-play model. And then the pricing. The pricing has gotten a lot better. Not all games, but definitely some of them have gotten a lot better. And so the story that I actually want to kind of talk about in depth is Battlefield Heroes, which is the one I mentioned. And Colin, funny enough, before we had actually started the show, we talked about Battlefield Heroes very briefly, and he said, "Isn't that game dead?" And so I kind of laughed because I remember in the press when Battlefield Heroes made their switch to some of their models, I think they changed, they made some pricing changes that affected stats on weapons. Like some weapons were now stronger. They introduced weapons that could give you a slight advantage. They made it more of a grind in order to acquire new things, taunts, custom outfits, all that stuff. So their in-game currency took longer to get that, but they lowered the price of actually buying something outright with money. So I think Kotaku was the first one to kind of call them out after they had gone through Battlefield Heroes forums, and some people had got upset on the forums, and they said some things like, I will never purchase this game. EA and DICE, you guys have ruined the game. You've ruined the community because of this ecosystem that you guys have created. Everyone's going to quit. This game is going to die. And this is like the day after the day after they released this new update that changed the pricing. And so I was listening to Ben Cousins' TED Talk on Pay to Win and Battlefield Heroes. And so, based off of all the press, he's like, they were so nervous about all of this. They didn't know what was going to happen. This is around the time when EA was laying off people, so they had to make these drastic changes because people were, they were afraid that their studio was going to go under. And so they made this drastic switch, and despite what everyone said, no one left. No one left. And the people in the forums, which is what I'm going to get to in a second, let me just say this. They polled the people in the forums and kind of looked at what their feedback was versus the rest of the community. 78% of their community never, ever looked at the forums. They didn't sign up for the forums. They didn't go to the forums. 78%. 28% read the forums but didn't post. 2% of the community is the ones that posted on the forums, were active in the forums, and they were the one voicing their opinions about, the game being ruined. 2%. All right. So again, let me go back to where I was. They thought that it was going to be just bad. So they started checking out the monthly average. No one was leaving. All right. They checked out the I believe the average rate at which average revenue per user stayed the same. Didn't go down, didn't dip, nothing like that. What ended up happening though was the conversion rate had actually like tripled or doubled or something like that. So the number of people that were actually buying items increased after they made all these changes, and Kotaku said they were going to get shit on and it was going to be terrible. And then, a year later, they were like 50% more profitable or something. They had a 50% profit margin or something like this. And this is all from this interview or this TED Talk that Ben Cousins is doing. And so I'm just sitting there while I'm listening to this, and I'm blown away. Like I just can't believe it. And I remember the Kotaku article. I think I might try to find it so I can link it to you guys. But it was just a mess.
Which is when that was the last I had heard of the game.
Right.
That's why I assumed that it was dead.
That you assumed it was just it was out of sight, out of mind. They wrote all this slanderous stuff, and the funniest thing about the whole incident, and this reminds me so much of people in the forums, is that the same 2% that was complaining about the prices, they did a special analytic statistic for the forum users and how much they were spending. And so I had Skyllus guess before we went on the show of how much they were actually spending. Now, mind you, when Battlefield Heroes first launched, they wanted 50 cents, only 50 cents per user, average user, for their revenue. 50 cents.
Which is low to begin with.
Which is really low, all right? When they first launched, they only had 25 cents, so half of that. So that was a conservative estimate, and they were well below that. So they make these changes, and the forums, people were complaining. They're saying they're never going to play. The forums represented an astronomical power user. The people on the forums were spending an average of $22. $22. Monthly. $22. And their conservative estimate was 50 cents. And these are the same people saying, we will never purchase your game. You have ruined the community. You have done all types of harm. He read one letter where he was calling out Ben. He said, and he addressed him several times, Ben, you've ruined millions of kids' Christmas because of this change. So I'm just like, you're spending $22? And so Ben, at the end, he said he went back to several people that said they would never play the game, that it was awful, that it was terrible, and they'll never purchase anything. And they did special statistics for those two people. The guy that said that Ben ruined the person's Christmas, the kid's Christmas, he ended up playing for a year later, still spending money. The guy that said he would never, ever play again ended up playing well into a year, ended up being one of their people that spent one of the most amount of money. So it was like, man, those dudes on the forums are really passionate, but they're not doing what they're saying. They're not following through. And obviously the pricing, the changes in prices didn't affect them negatively. So, I think they're kind of teetered on a really fine line between how they did things. But I wanted to share that story because of a couple of reasons. One, that percentage for the forums, 2%, actually represented that community. And I know a lot of people talk about Gears of War and their community. That wasn't actually off. It was 28%. Or 22%. Was it 22 or 28? I don't remember. Anyway, it was some statistic like that he made. Was it 110%? I'm just
Your math is just awful.
I'm just going off the top of my head. It might have been 22% because 78, 22, that makes sense. It was something like that. I don't know. Ben is the one that said it. I can link to the TED Talk when we're all done with this. But I was just going off of verbatim, kind of like memory of what I heard. But regardless, it was 2% of the forums community that was actually vocal about it, and they had they weren't even remotely close to how the rest of the game was actually playing out. Just not even close. So, I say that because of a lot of the things that I've seen on the forums with other games, Hawk and free-to-play, even our game, free-to-play, Planet side free to play, you know, you see all these vocal people about, oh, the community or the pricing, the ecosystem, that's all whacked, it's off, and it's like, unless you actually have the data, like you really don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like that's just flat out, like you just have no idea what you're talking about if you think that you know, because you feel like it's this way, and you're sitting there again. I don't know how many people this affects. Again, it's just been what he said. You're sitting there complaining, and yet you're spending the most amount of money, triple. You're spending triple what the average users were spending, triple per month, triple, $22. I was blown the hell away. So I had to share that story about the free-to-play stuff before we go any further with it. Now, in terms of like free-to-play versus pay-to-win, I kind of touched on it with Blacklight. Obviously, the thing that I think people don't want to do is grind, and then you know, only come up with one or two weapons. And I can name a number of games that do that off the top of my head. And I can't really say that they give you a big advantage if you switch weapons, but it's just that idea that you have to just play so much in order to get one thing is kind of like, I don't really like it.
I disagree. Like with specifically use Blacklight as an example earlier. I disagree that it's pay to win anyway, really. Because
well, I don't think it's pay to win
okay.
necessarily because of the rentals. I'm just saying what I saw in chat.
They give you lots of weapons, and in fact, I am able to usually just run around with the default weapon and wreck shit.
Yeah.
But I think that no matter what you do, if you're a shooter and you're doing a free-to-play game, if you're giving weapons away or there's different weapons and a wide range of weapons, and you don't have access to all those weapons, then no matter what, when you get killed by something, you're going to be like, oh, that shit's cheap, you know, yada, 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 if you don't have that gun. And that's always going to be a discouraging to someone playing the game who might not understand the full system or have played it enough in order to unlock a few guns that are more along their alley or whatever. So I think that's always a huge factor. The other thing is that in shooters particularly, there's a huge challenge of free-to-play because you don't have, specifically first-person shooters, you don't have the advantage of being able to do characters and skins and the same stuff that League of Legends profits off of and Team Fortress profits off of, in the sense that the only thing that's visible is your gun.
Right.
And you can customize the gun a bit, but it never really looks as unique as a skin might for a character. And you can't add as much character in the more broad sense in a gun as you can in a person or a character or a hero or a champion or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So no matter what, shooters are always going to have this huge barrier for free-to-play. And it's interesting because there's been several attempts recently for free-to-play shooters. And I think that goes right into talking about kind of what's on the way and what's here. Planet side obviously is a real big one.
Yeah.
Their monetization is basically speeding up your progression is the primary what they're selling. Yeah. And the progression is really slow. Really slow.
Really slow. I wasn't even going to touch Planet side.
Really slow.
I'm glad that you hit it, and I didn't have to even. It was an afterthought. Like I kind of had it in the back of my mind, but yeah.
That really said, slow. I feel like not having guns or attachments didn't really impact my ability to enjoy the game at all. Although there were a few, like the Sunders not having the spawn capability without leveling up first. But I mean, there's like small things, but on the whole, I don't feel like that the progression impacts the game in a major way. But when I go watch someone stream and I see him using this gun, he's picking people off across the map. And I know it's going to take me several hundred hours in order to grind for that gun and those attachments. It's definitely a deterrent to playing unless I'm planning on dropping money or a ton of time into the game.
Which is
a huge challenge.
I'd say based off of our association with shooters in particular, it is hard to get into a free-to-play and be like, I'm going to spend money on this unless you know it's something that you're going to be playing a long time and you have an investment in it. Like, you know, for the competitive people, I don't feel like there's very many free-to-play games that are even remotely enticing because I know that, well, it depends on the type. Like Planet side, obviously there's a couple things where you get kind of an advantage based off of how you play, based on the weapon. It's not huge, but it's very minor. And it's like, I don't want to grind that long in order to get that. And then you have, and I'm going to use one that's not a free-to-play. I'm going to use Call of Duty as a good example because in their competitive environment, they still have the grind in order to unlock all the weapons, but in the competitive scene, they just unlock everything. So it's like,
Yeah.
as a competitive player, I would feel like if I were going to play a free-to-play game, I want everything to be unlocked, or at least I want there to be a preset of things that, hey, this weapon is okay all the way to this range of weapons. And those are our competitive weapon set, and you guys can use those freely. I'd be like, okay, that's fair. But
which can lead interestingly into Firefall, which is still in beta, but
yeah,
they're pushing the competitive aspect really hard. And before they had it so that as you level up and you do go through the progression or whatever, you would hit a point where you would go from tier 1 to tier 2, and you get a stronger battle suit, and it was its own PvP tier. So you have tier 1 players and the tier 2 players.
right.
And tier 2 was your higher level players. And in tier 2, you could grind for minerals and upgrade your suit, and you could get an advantage by playing a lot. And what they found was that people weren't enjoying that because they had to grind just to compete.
Just to compete, exactly.
Just to compete. And now they're going to be doing another patch soon, which will make just one tier for competitive play. And I assume you might have to grind a bit. I'm not sure. I think they might have said that you'll have everything unlocked. But regardless, it won't be nearly as much as it was before, where you'll just be able to hop in. That'll be the competitive tier, and it has its own set of balance and abilities and all that stuff. So it's interesting that they kind of came to that same conclusion, that people don't want to grind to compete.
Exactly.
It's a huge deterrent to competing or having competition for your game.
And so, I don't know how many games really. I mean, we obviously haven't played all the free-to-play shooters. I know.
I've played almost all of them, I think.
Gotham City Imposters, PlanetSide, Loadout. You played that, and you partially worked on it.
Yeah.
What am I missing right now? Hawken is kind of a Mech Warrior Online. I don't know.
Ghost Recon Online.
Ghost Recon Online. I haven't played that one. You did.
It's fun.
Battlefield. Play for free to play.
I think that play for free is just the BF3. I think as a free version. I'm fairly certain. And then Battlefield Heroes obviously is another one.
Team Fortress 2. And that's like it. That's all I can think of.
I'm gonna cheat on my Steam while you talk. Let's see.
That's pretty much it. So I mean, of those,
that's still a lot.
That's a lot. But of those, I can't think of anyone that I would be particularly interested in. Oh, and Firefall and competing in. I think the only one that we've really sank any time into was Firefall, because they said, hey, we want this to be for the competitive community. We have this whole PvP aspect that we think is going to be huge. We're going to throw together a big tournament. So they're kind of playing on it. And I think Team Fortress 2 also has a competitive community, but it's not in the same vein, I think, as the other ones. It's not as big. It's kind of been around for a while. And they didn't start out free to play. So it wasn't like that was just their intent all along. And, Valve was just like, hey, we're going to do free to play and we're going to focus on competitive. It wasn't really like that. So of those, I mean, I might play PlanetSide competitive, maybe, not really. I don't know, possibly.
What does that even mean? What does that mean to you?
What?
Playing PlanetSide competitively.
That means to me that I needed to get my tank skills up. I need to grind on the tank. I need to
find a group of 500 people to roll with.
Yeah, I got to find a big queue. My outfit. We have to grow the Renegade some more. And last time we had Tremel in the chat, and he was saying some things like, it's not going to be that way. I have to learn to fly. Tint says I have to learn how to fly. So I mean, there's a lot of things, and what you really hit on it with the customization aspect of monetizing it for developers. That's a big piece. And for shooters, it's like, I want to see myself dominating someone else. And you can't always do that very well. Now, there is one game that we didn't talk about that I played. I don't know if you played it at all. And they are a browser-based free-to-play shooter. The name of the game is called Offensive Combat.
Oh God! Is that the game where you can do dick shots, or crotch shots? I think they actually call them dick shots in the game. So I'm not even kidding.
I actually do think they call them dick shots.
And you called it offensive combat, but I think their branding is offensive combat.
Okay. Offensive combat.
Distinct difference.
Okay, offensive combat. I played that, browser-based, kind of like Quake,
Yeah,
And it
it's
is
weird.
first person. However, whenever you taunt in this game, again, offensive combat, they change the camera around to turn actually on you so you can see
Right.
your character taunting. So that's kind of how they kind of got around it and said, okay, we're going to celebrate customization on your character by letting you see your
See
character
it.
while you're taunting. So that kind of helps, but really, if you want to be a shooter, I think, and you want to use cosmetics as a big, push, I feel like third-person shooters are obviously the way you should go. And there's a couple games. Firefall is one. You can play first person or third person.
Yeah.
Obviously, Loadout, our game is third person. And then I'll count offensive combat just because of the
Super
fact.
MNC is one we're missing.
Oh, but dude, that's not really a shooter, dude. They
Yeah,
disappointed me.
they removed a lot of the shooter elements, but
That's not a
it's
shooter anymore.
technically a third-person shooter.
It is not a shooter anymore. I don't count that
Since
as
that most
it's.
of the classes have guns,
I'm not.
and you aim them and you shoot them,
Nope.
but you don't actually kill anyone
Dude,
without
you
three people
have
jumping
like
on them.
3,000 HP, dude.
Yeah,
Like no. I feel like that's like Smite. It's like Smite.
yeah,
It might as
it's
well
very
be Smite.
much. It's a shooter version of Smite, in my opinion.
So
But yeah, I think that definitely third person is the way to go
yeah,
for a shooter, and I really hope that sometime soon we can get a good third-person shooter that's meant for competitive play. Uh, a good free-to-play third-person shooter that's meant for competitive play. And I think that free-to-play is almost going to become necessary for tournaments in the future. I mean, it just makes sense from looking at like how League of Legends has kind of snowballed everything and built it around the competitive players. I think that that makes sense, and it's a good way of justifying, as I was talking about what Valve had said earlier. It's a good way of justifying developing for a game continuously because you'll be able to get more money out of it, and then throwing it all back to the community over and over and just kind of feeding off each other, which I think that you just can't get with a AAA title as much. Obviously, it's not impossible to be successful in competitive side of things as a premium title,
yeah,
but I don't know. It just seems like everything's kind of pointing towards free to play being the way to go for that.
yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. I think that obviously League of Legends has just tremendously shown the way. Like, look at them, how they've done it in terms of growth, and it's hard for me to justify them specifically because as developers they embrace Riot embraces the competitive scene, and so that's part of it that helps. But obviously the barrier to entry for free to play is like I don't have to spend a dime, so like acquiring a new user is really low in terms of how much you're actually paying to acquire a new user.
And every new
uh,
user is a potential stream viewer.
and yeah, so it's like
Hell, it's almost
that.
encouraged with League. I mean,
Yeah,
you'll start off and you're like, oh, I don't know how to play. Well, watch so and so stream and you'll learn. You know, like
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's definitely I 100% agree in terms of the route that shooters should take. They have to show out the customization. So obviously, third person plays into that, or they do something where offensive combat does, where they make it so that you can see your character doing some type of animation, um, or they just don't do shooters at all and they just they go MOBA or something like that.
there's so
Now
many
one
of them already.
Yeah, they're starting to get crowded.
Yeah.
The one thing I do want to talk about really quickly is obviously the new consoles are on horizon, and free to play and consoles haven't really meshed well. That's partially Microsoft's fault. I don't know Sony's ecosystem and how they do things, their microtransactions. I don't know that very well, but obviously Microsoft Points has been like a big deterrent from developers saying, "Oh, let's get on that." When you look at the Microsoft points, you're like, this doesn't add up. None of this adds up. How am I supposed to? Wait, I'm still left with 240 Microsoft. What? So I mean, that's like one of the things that's obviously holding them back. But
And then there's the fact that Microsoft and Sony will take a cut of all profits, which you don't have on PC. And then you have the fact that the certification process for Microsoft in particular is notoriously pain in the ass and expensive.
yes,
So if you're one of those games like League or any free-to-play game on PC right now updates once a week, then you can't go through certification for however much it costs over and over and over. So it needs to be its own process.
Right.
which
And
Microsoft hasn't want to let the reins loose on that from what we've seen so far.
so, yeah, I mean, the people that always ask, and I probably you and I both get this question a ton, is, why isn't there free to play on Xbox? Why isn't this game on Xbox? Or why isn't this game on Sony? And I don't really get Sony, obviously, we get Xbox. But when you think about how free to play works, and Colin talks about patches and stuff like that, you have to think about how much content free to play developers are pumping into their game. League of Legends is a perfect example. They have a new character every, what, 2 weeks? Something like that?
Yeah, they're slowing down this year, but it was 2 weeks all last year.
Okay, so every 2 weeks they have a new character. They change some patches, they nerf some characters, they buff some characters. Can you imagine every 2 weeks trying to go through Microsoft certification for your game? I mean, not only is it expensive, but it's like you have to go through that process of them saying, okay, this checks out, this checks out, this checks out, this checks out, this checks out. Now you can let your game in. And then you're going to do the same cycle in another 2 weeks. That's like ridiculous. So, the way Microsoft regulates and gates that is really scary for a lot of developers. And I think a lot of people don't understand that process and how tedious it is and how much the Microsoft gate, that wall of entry for developers actually is. So that's something that I wanted to touch on. Obviously, next-gen consoles are around the corner. Free-to-play is on the rise. There have been a couple free-to-play titles to release on Xbox 360, and I know PS3 has a couple as well. I don't know what title. I know Dust 514, I think, is one that is supposed to launch on PS3 or is out. And then on Xbox 360, all I know is Happy Wars. That there was another game that I think that launched, but around the same time as Happy Wars, it's free to play.
I've heard like 3 or 4 games say they were going to do Xbox Live free to play, and then it just never materialized. Yeah. And I don't know. It seems like Microsoft's just in the way repeatedly in that regard.
So it's definitely part of the issue with consoles right now, and that's why it's just more prevalent on PC, and it makes sense there. Switching over, so we hammered on that half the show already gone by on free to play.
You want to hop to the community topic?
Let's hop to that community topic, which is the transition from a casual player to a competitive player. And I think I also talked a lot on last week's, so I'm going to change this around. I'm going to let you go ahead and start.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the notes you have here is there a transition? And I think that that's really the core of my standpoint on it, is that I was raised competitive,
Right.
I think that a lot of families are just naturally competitive, and then especially if you have siblings, then that just gets ramped up to a whole nother level in a lot of cases, where competitive in this case is more of a broad attitude than a gaming specific thing, where I want to win everything. And it bothers me when I lose, and if I do poorly at something, even if I'm not even competing, I'll still be disappointed and want to do it better.
Right, and you'll figure out what did I do wrong? How can I be better?
So there's just kind of that type of person who is competitive, and then you have people who are okay with it or might just not. They might be like, "Oh, it sucks, I lost," but they don't actively strive to become better. So I think when you apply that to gaming, you get kind of the same thing, where if you're able to recognize that you can improve and then you actively go out and try to do it, then you're already a competitive player in your own right. And then it's just a matter of figuring out how to get involved in the competitive scene and working your way from there. I don't think you can ever go from truly casual in the sense of not really caring if you get better to magically becoming competitive overnight. It's something which you either are that way or you aren't, I think. And then I think what most people are really asking when they ask that is, how do I go from being competitive to getting involved in the competitive scene?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And in that case, there's really depends on the game you're playing, but usually the first step is to find some people to play with, and that just comes down to opening up a bit and starting to post on forums, send some messages around. It might even be playing one night and you run into a group of guys who are pretty good at the game, and you're like, "Hey, you mind if I play with you tonight? Do you guys need a fourth?" Then you just hop in. So you have to actively kind of try to get involved, especially if a game doesn't have a dedicated forum. But most truly competitive games, in the sense of actually have tournaments, and we'll get into developer involvement in a second, But if there's actually tournaments, there's probably a website somewhere where there's a group of people that you can reach out to and say, hey, does anyone want to play? Or, you know.
Right.
So I think that that's at the core. Do you want to get into developer involvement?
So yeah, sure. Part of the push, and you talked about the type of person, and that was a big question of mine as well. Is like, are you truly like a competitive person, and are you just that way? And I feel like gaming is inherently competitive in some regards. Obviously, there is the whole like casual aspects of it. If you play Peggle or whatever, there's not too much competitive Peggle or Tetris. I mean, there is a competitive scene, I guess, for the highest score, but
until WTG picks it up.
Right. You're not really competing against anyone in particular. It's just like you're trying to best yourself. And that's how most people approach those games. So I don't really think there's like an inherent competitive aspect to those games other than trying to get the high score. But when you pit someone against someone else, I think the type of player that plays, okay, I'm going to play against this guy, they're already naturally competitive. And then what Colin said is the question then becomes, how do I get involved with the league, or how do I make money doing this, or how do I start competing in tournaments and stuff like that? And part of the thing with developers is, if they help push the scene a little bit, it becomes that much easier for you to find those players, find those tournaments, find the scene, the competitive scene. So they kind of foster in the competitive community. And I think there's certain games that didn't start out competitive in their nature, but ultimately ended up being competitive because of, obviously the nature of the game. You're pitting one set of players against another set of players, and then the developer kind of like, gave it the nudge to go, okay, we're going to push this even further. How far can this go? And we're starting to see a lot more of that with things like Treyarch Call of Duty, Riot League of Legends. What's the name of Firefall studio?
Red 5.
Red 5, Firefall. So the more studios start pushing it, the more you'll see people that are just playing like, okay, I'm just on League of Legends, I'm playing with my buddies, and then they're like, oh, let me check the forums real quick. Or they have something in game like Smite does. Oh, what is this TV thing? Oh, there's a tournament going on. Oh, crap. How do I get involved with this tournament? And then they start asking questions, and that's kind of how they do it with high res. Yeah, Smite. So I mean, there's obviously developers that kind of push for it, and then that helps casuals get into it. But it all comes down to, I think the underlying question is, how do I get involved with competitive gaming? And so we talked about this a lot in the past in different videos. I think you actually have a guide on one. I have a guide on one. And you said it comes down to the type of people that you are playing with or that you try to find. And then is the game that you're playing competitive in nature? Does it have a competitive community that is trying to grow or expand? Or is there one already in place that you just need to, okay, it's on game battles, that's where I need to go? So some of the things that I did and some history about my competitive stuff is that I started off, I think, playing competitively with my family, and we played all types of games. I had my uncle, my cousin, his son, my brother, Orange, and my other cousin who would also play. My uncle and my cousin happened to be on the police force, and so we started doing Madden leagues with each other. So we would play Madden against each other, and it just kind of progressively got more. We started playing with Madden, then it went to NBA 2K, and then it was like, well, what other games can we play? And I'm not gonna lie, I was not a big, huge Pokemon fan, but we had some serious like Pokemon battles with the family, and it was just like, wow, this is really fun. And so with Madden, I started to go online, and I started to kind of compete against people online, and then I started going on forums like, who are the best players? I want to play against the best players. Where are they at? And then I started doing local tournaments, and it was just like the environment that I was in was inherently competitive. Everyone was playing against each other, and we wanted to be the best. And then it just progressed from there, and it was like, okay, Madden is big. And then I got into shooters, and it was like, I already had the Madden experience, and I went to shooters. It was like, who are the best players? What are the best teams? How do I get good really fast? What do I need to do? So yeah, it's partially the environment, partially the type of person that you are, and obviously developer support has a big play in that as well. So That kind of touches on, I guess, what we can talk about it with, in terms of where I want to go for this community topic. That's 8 minutes. 8 minutes. It's not too bad. 8 minutes on that topic. I can handle that. Um, I think the other thing I saw people talking about that this is one that you first saw it. I didn't see it first. Destiny,
Yep.
Bungie's new game. So I'm gonna let you start it off again.
I was actually pretty excited. I ended up watching the live stream when they did the reveal on Sunday, and of course, all the live streams were just like, "Here's the video they handed us a couple days ago," and then they played it. But it's pretty cool. It seems like they're trying to do something that's massive in scale. They're planning on releasing on 360, PlayStation 3, and next-gen consoles, which is pretty crazy. Just even thinking about the logistics of that from the standpoint of someone who works in the industry,
Yeah,
that's really
it's a massive
difficult.
undertaking.
Yeah. And the big news was no PC, which I think is going to disappoint a lot of people. Well, they distinctly said no PC, but it wasn't part of their announcement. And I've heard since then that there's people saying that, well, it might be PC because they said this. But specifically in their announcement, there was no PC confirmed. They said just
on
consoles.
top of that, there was a developer that quoted something like, the types of people that play PC games aren't shooter enthusiasts. And I was like, Bungie has said that? What? And it was like...
Specifically, they said that the way that people play shooters has changed now.
Right. So it was like, we're not focusing on this because people don't play shooters the way that we envision with Halo. Yeah. That's what I got from it. So I was like, what?
It's a bit of a bold claim. They were kind of suggesting that, in the way it was said, he was kind of suggesting that Halo changed all of that. Like, it just made people go from keyboard mouse to consoles and regenerating health and 2 weapons and all that stuff.
Right.
So I was kind of surprised by that statement. It definitely took some steam off their announcement. But so going on, the rest was no subscription fee, which if you guys don't know anything about it, it's going to be persistent world with upgrades. So you'll have your character, you'll unlock equipment, I assume, armor slots. In one of the screenshots they had from the video, there was a character and he was decked out in armors and he had 3 weapon slots and stats at the bottom. So it's kind of very RPG-ish in that sense.
Yeah.
So you'll carry all that stuff over, and then the big thing that they're trying to do, it sounds like, is make it so you can access that everywhere. So in the trailer they had iPhones on their it was really pushed during the video, was the iPhone interactivity, where it was like you got a text message from the game and it's like, hey, you got this mission. You want to go do this mission right now? You want to do this mission?
I'm at lunch right now. Why are you texting me? Why are you texting me right now?
Yeah.
Why are you texting me right now?
It's like, the action on Venus is hot today. You want to get in? It's like, oh, okay.
I'm on it today. I'm at the movies
Let
right
me just
now.
drop whatever I'm doing and go to my Xbox to go play real quick. So they're really pushing that, and then you could, of course, browse through and look at your items. You can look at your weapons. You can probably check messages and all that stuff, which is all really cool. I think it's nice to be able to check that stuff on my phone. Just as someone who's played a couple of MMOs, and I wish I was able to check that or browse like the auction house on my phone or that kind of stuff, so I have something to do while I'm not playing the game. So they're really pushing that. There was screenshots of the hoppers, and I'm going to put this link in chat since this is what I posted on Twitter a little bit ago. So hoppers are what Bungie used during Halo to do matchmaking. So you would select a hopper, and they would put you in there, and you get matched up. What's interesting about this one is that with it being a persistent world, you might expect it to be like an MMO, where you just have one big world, and everyone walks around, you do quests together, you kind of roam together. But the impression that I get is it's more like Guild Wars, the original, where the actual missions are instanced, so you aren't actually in a big world, you're just in a smaller customized world, rather than having one big overworld which everyone plays in at the same time, and servers and all that stuff. So in the screenshot, you can actually see there's hoppers for Strike, Raid, Faction Wars, which I assume would be the competitive multiplayer. There's two swords clashing together, so you would only assume. And then at the top, there's Chapter 3, which would lead you to believe that would be like the story mode for the game, which, coming from Bungie, you would definitely expect them to have a very strong story mode for the game. And this reveal was actually talking all about the world of the game, so they didn't actually show that much gameplay. All they showed was a couple clips of people running around with guns and a very generic-looking Really, it was pretty generic. Space shooter, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't anything crazy, mind blowing. The
How many times
graphics
did they
were
show the
good.
ship? How many times did they show that ship
The
flying
big,
around?
big circle ship. Yeah, there's quite a few. Most of their concept art was revolved around that, and that's supposed to be like the hub for the city. So I imagine that's going to be a point of emphasis always. And they mentioned planets, so they were talking about Mars and Venus. So I assume that that'll be kind of how they are going to branch off. There's actually a game Warframe. It's in beta right now,
Hmm.
which is very similar, where you kind of go from planet to planet, and those are your missions. It'll be easy for them to add on DLC because there's thousands of planets. So you just kind of add a new planet, and that's your new quests and hub and all that stuff. So my suspicion is that it's gonna be instance like that. They didn't really talk about it during this, since it was mostly about the world. They showed some different enemies and enemy races. And the interesting thing for me was they said they had a 10-year plan for the game. So my question is, if it's 10 years and it's coming out for the 360 and the PlayStation 3, what's going to happen when they're updating the game, updating the game, updating the game, either through expansions or weekly updates, and they're updating, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, we're not going to support this old consoles anymore, you know? Because 10 more years would be a very long lifespan for that game, or for those consoles.
It would be.
So what's going
Indeed.
to happen when they pull the plug? Like, you have to upgrade to the next gen consoles in order to play?
I mean,
Otherwise, your character be just wasted?
realistically, are you still going to be on? Okay,
I won't be.
hypothetically speaking.
But there's still people playing PlayStation 2
Yeah,
to
there's
this
still people
day.
playing PlayStation 2 right now. So if you have an Xbox 360 and you want to play Destiny, you want to play Destiny, for a long, long time, and you don't ever have a plan to upgrade, I mean, I guess that would suck. But my guess is that in terms of what we've seen in all games in the past, at some point in time, developers stop supporting their games. They just do. So I would say they are expecting that to happen, and it's just like if you're still on the 360 or you're still on the PS3, oh well, tough luck. That's what I think is going to happen.
I think it sucks. It
But
sounds like you wouldn't even be able to play anymore if it was persistent world,
yeah, which would really
which is
suck. I
really
mean,
different than most games where you would at least be able to keep playing. They did confirm that you'll have to have an internet connection at all times for Destiny.
maybe they'll have
So
some specific servers for those. I don't know.
I don't know.
I can't even speculate. I have no idea. PS3, they'd be like old systems servers, and then you'd just be playing version 1.333 for the rest of your time ever playing Destiny. You'll never get any new content, which
And
I
you wouldn't
guess
be able to
is
play with other people, and you wouldn't be able to transfer your stuff over. Yeah,
right.
I don't know. It just seems like it'd be a logistical mess.
So, I mean, that's kind of weird that they said that. That's something that I was kind of like, man, they plan on supporting this game for a long time. I don't really know what they're going to do unless they decide like it's going to be Destiny, and then they're going to switch it up and it's going to be like Destiny 2 in 5 years. Only available on the PS3 or the PS4 and Xbox 720.
The big thing is
Something like that.
it sounds like no matter what, your characters will stay through it. Like it sounds like they're pretty big on your characters being persistent.
Right. So, I
And
mean,
it'll
Mass
be
Effect.
interesting. I mean,
Mass
I
Effect.
think more like WoW.
Mass Effect.
I don't know.
Why are you hating on? Why are you hating
I mean,
on
Mass Effect doesn't
Shepard?
have.
Why are
You
you
don't
hating on
carry all your
Shepard?
stuff over from game to game in Mass Effect, do you?
But you carry some
You keep
stuff.
the story and your
You,
choices.
you carry Shepard.
And whatever goofy hairstyle you gave your character for the first one. Yeah.
And I think the
It'll be
other
interesting.
thing, and someone just
I'm
said it
on
in
board.
chat. Someone just said it in chat is like the really interesting thing is like they haven't confirmed PC support, and you're gonna have a 10-year plan. What? That doesn't. It's like doesn't even make sense. It's like the longest games or the games that remain active and are updated the most are all on the PC, and you plan on having a 10-year plan. I mean, these next gen consoles better be just boss when they come out,
Yeah.
because at some point in time they're probably going to be obsolete, and your PC is just going to get upgraded. You're going to be still playing the same old thing. So it's like, I don't know.
It's also interesting in an age where we get a new Call of Duty every year.
Exactly.
So I mean, if
And
they could release new updates every year, like new major update every year.
so I think the other
I don't
thing
know.
that I kind of want to mention with Destiny is like, you know who the publisher is, right?
Activision, yeah.
The Devils.
Activision knows about Milken, that's for sure. Which, when they say no subscription fee, it does get you worried.
It's like, what does that mean? Am I going to pay for each installment? Hmm.
Probably.
It's gonna be chapters and installments. Do you think they would go free to play?
It's really weird because traditionally you would just release an expansion pack in order to build upon something. But unless next gen consoles have a ton of disk space, it's not really doesn't work for the console model as well as it does for PC. In the sense that eventually you'll run out of
You'll
space.
run out of space. Yeah.
I mean, I
Which
imagine
have
using
now.
yeah.
I'm on the old 20 gig on the Xbox, and I'm frequently deleting games and adding new content. So it's like I refuse to get a bigger hard drive either. So it's just I'm just not going to do it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, up in the air. I can't wait to hear more information on it. I'm definitely very excited about the game. Probably as excited as Colin. So anything Bungie has done has been pretty good. Obviously, they ended Reach with a very interesting
I feel like
set
they
of.
were on their way out.
They were like, "Oh, we're done. We're just gonna throw everything in. Fuck it."
Yeah, that's what I think. The big thing is that Bungie's always been really good at features. Like they threw in Forge, which I think was the first ever map editor
For
on
console.
consoles, as far
Yeah.
as I know. I mean, Far Cry had one. I think it was after that though.
Yeah.
They threw in replays, which is a feature that should be in every game, but for some reason isn't. They never got around to that spectator mode, but I think that if it had stayed with Bungie, maybe they would have. I don't know. It was never a high priority for them.
All
But I
right.
mean, like,
Question.
really cool.
Last question I want to ask you about Destiny and in the chat. Do you think that Destiny will, or Bungie will, push Destiny into the competitive scene?
My suspicion is no. Just because of Bungie's history, they haven't really been that aggressive on it.
Mm.
I hope so. I plan on getting into it anyways. I think that it'll be fun to stream and just produce content for, just with it being its own world. Obviously, we were really excited for Huxley when it was announced, and almost everyone's saying no.
No, not seeing it. Nah, it's too casual.
But look at the picture I linked. There's two swords crossed. That's pretty competitive.
They're
Yeah.
dueling. All right, that's it on Destiny. Let's see. What do I have? I think I have
We can talk
the
about some of the news today.
the Guts of
There
Gears.
was Guts of Gears. There was Halo Majestic Map Pack trailer from an awesome studio named Certain Affinity that I happen to work at.
Yeah.
And then there was
shameless plug.
Gears Judgment has leaked onto the internet.
So yeah, I mean, there's a number of things we can talk about. I think the first is probably the Judgment trailer, Guts of Gears. I may be able to pull it up here. Let's see here.
I really hate the Baird voiceovers on these trailers.
I don't know if I can actually search in here. Add video to playlist. Guts of Gears.
Yeah, like I'm not a fan of the Baird voiceovers. Seems a bit out of place in a trailer. That's my personal thoughts on that. And they've done it in 2 videos now. And the first one I was like, oh, okay, he's telling me about Overrun. That's nice. But then when they pull it a second time, or technically 3, they had the campaign story. He was also talking. Yeah, I've never liked Baird
Why?
as a character in Gears. I don't know.
Why?
I've never liked him. So him doing the voices in the trailer just seems really weird.
I think this one is it. Nope, it's not. It's gonna be too hard to find in all this.
Okay.
Guts of Gears multiplayer trailer, maybe? Larry Herb. Yeah, buddy. Boom.
Was there any news in the trailer that was new? It seemed like it was all stuff that they had already announced in some form or other.
I'm not sure. Look at that. Spitting them down.
Yeah, it's not actually centered in it. Yeah.
Is it not?
Lieutenant Baird, actually.
I
I'm
can
the
expand
kind of
it.
cog who values results over rules.
Is that
you,
close?
Intel never
yeah.
hurts either. Let's get our
Maybe.
hands dirty
No.
with some multiplayer, shall we?
That's better. What are
I
you
can't
talking
see it.
about?
I can't see it. I'm
I
watching
can.
the stream. Okay, it's good.
better. Yeah.
So yeah, did you were you surprised by anything in there? I guess the big announcement was the skins.
The custom, I mean, but we knew about it at the playtest, so
We knew about it.
no one else knew about
No one
it.
else knew about it.
And we couldn't talk about it at all. And it's one of the things I wanted to mention when they did the locust removal, when that was confirmed.
Everyone was freaking out.
When everyone was like, "Oh no, we lost the locust," and I wanted to say, but what they decided to do was add character skins. So I mean, it's kind of like a trade-off. Like, okay, we're taking this away, but we are going to give you some custom character skins. Those are the spot grenades that you guys are seeing right there. I mean, the spot grenades are pretty cool. I mean, there's so much of this that it's like, they haven't really shown anything other than the custom character skins that you haven't seen already, I don't feel like.
I think they had talked about the weapon or grenade types, but they hadn't shown them explicitly like this.
You know, they didn't show, I guess that was Domination right there, that they did show. It's like that brief clip just a second ago. But in the actual trailer, when Dom, you know, I love Dom, Baird is talking, he doesn't say anything about Domination. He talks about Team Deathmatch. He's like, Team Deathmatch is back. Free for all.
You're gonna say that.
Overrun.
Yeah.
So they didn't talk about Domination at all, which I thought was kind of puzzling.
Seems so funny to be like, Team Deathmatch is back as a selling point on the back of a box. Like,
yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. So I mean, you know, I can't really say that anything is surprising for us. You know, there's that custom character skin, the gold armor, baby. I'm getting that. Oh, on Sophia, you see that? Oh, they did talk about Domination. Okay.
I thought they did.
Maybe I just missed that part, or maybe I was just too overwhelmed by the gold armor that I just. Because when I saw the gold armor, I was like, oh, because I didn't actually see that. What we saw was the black armor. The black armor looks sick. Which I think they've accidentally shown a couple times, because I remember some people were like, "Was that black armor?" There's the falling animation. They actually have that in now. That was the other thing I was tweeting about. They actually added a fall animation, which was one of the major complaints, I think, of some of the people in the forums. It's like, we're falling, but we look stupid when we're falling. So that was really cool.
It just makes no sense to me. Falling
you hate the gondola fall. Like,
yeah, just that one fall. Like, I don't mind being able to drop down ledges. Like, that makes sense.
Dude,
being able to drop down like a 10-foot ledge, I get that. He's a strong soldier. But dropping off like a 40-story drop and then just doing a slight crouch as you land and then be like, ah, all right, no, I'm fine, and then walk it off. Like, that just seems ridiculous to me.
Here's the thing.
It looks ridiculous. It's clearly like it seems so hacked in. Like that specific fall just makes the whole feature look so hacked in. And it was worse when there wasn't a falling animation, but now it's still just ridiculous to me.
You take fall damage.
Yes, you do, but it's not apparent. Like, you should just break your legs and die. You shouldn't be able to fall there.
Colin, just trust your guts.
It's like they just needed something early on to be like, look at this new feature we added, falling. And this was the most extreme example they could possibly give, and that was the first map they showed off. And now they have it in the trailer. It just looks so dumb.
No,
like, that's all I have to say.
Trust your gut, dude.
And I'm not that negative about the whole falling thing. Like, I feel like it can improve map design in a lot of ways, and there's a few maps where it does. But it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yo, I'm only gonna say just trust your gut.
That fall is ridiculous.
Look, okay, here's my thing. Here's why it doesn't bother me.
Here's the thing, like, in normal shooter games, that fall might kill some people. Maybe not Halo, but in other games where there's fall damage, you might die from a fall like that. And then in Gears, from a game which doesn't even have jumping. It doesn't have jumping. I'm supposed to expect that a character can not jump, but they can fall 40 feet and just walk it off.
No, people eat boom shots. What are you talking about? Like, I know you've seen it. Get hit by a boom shot and just doesn't even phase you. So falling off a ledge is nothing. But here's my point.
I'd argue that fall would hurt you more than being hit by a boom shot.
Here's my thing with it. It's on Sarah. Sarah isn't Earth. Obviously, all the dudes there are built like freaking Coltrane, and you know, they're all huge. Coltrane is an all-star athlete. He can take that fall, no problem. He can probably jump off of a 10-story building and be perfectly fine. What are you talking about, Colin? It's perfectly normal.
No. Unless you're arguing the gravity on Sarah isn't as
The
bad as
gravity
ours.
on Sarah isn't as bad.
But
That's why the
they
locusts are
fall. They
underground
fall
with no
pretty damn
problem.
fast.
They're underground just like, man, this gravity is great.
I'm gonna calculate out that gravity based on the fall time and the distance, and then
Yo,
prove you wrong.
yo, the gravity is different on Sarah. That's what I'm sticking to.
It's ridiculous.
All right. So that's it on that. When we have the last thing that I wanted to talk about, probably going to be a major topic on next week's show. I kind of like ending it like this. So it's like we talk about it a little bit, and then we talk about it in depth more on the following show. So I kind of alluded to this. I was debating on whether or not we'd have enough time. We still have 2 minutes. I'm going to probably talk about it about 5 minutes or so. And I want to talk about Major League Gaming's content structure. And I want to directly compare it to a network very similar to Major League Gaming, because Major League Gaming is a media network. That's how their business, that's what their license is, that's how they make their money now, is streaming and doing all that stuff, is Machinima. I want to make that direct comparison between those two, and I want to talk about Major League Gaming's approach towards content as of right now, and take a look at like a network like Machinima or Yoush or the Gaming Network, or there's just so many of them now on YouTube. And I personally feel like, as a former pro player for Major League Gaming, that with the level of players that they have in the league, they've severely underutilized their ability as a network to push content out from the players in a way that was meaningful to people that might not necessarily get involved with competitive gaming, but might be like, man, how is this guy so good? What is he doing? Is there a tutorial on it? And they tried some stuff with like Get Better Faster and things of that nature. But when I look at a direct comparison with someone like Machinima, they have a pretty elite, I say elite, maybe the hardcore upper echelon of players, but they don't have the absolute best players all within the network, like, representing Machinima. Whereas Major League Gaming has all of the best players that aren't really producing content. And some of the biggest videos, and I'll use T. Martin as an example, are videos that specifically show how to do things that people are like, well, how do I get to this spot? What's the tip for this? I want to see really good gameplay. I want to know how to do this better. And Major League Gaming hasn't really done that. They haven't really pushed their best players to create. I mean, they have. They've been, kind of done stuff with like, hey, you want to do this Get Better Faster article, but it really hasn't been something where they're like, okay, if you guys all push this content in the MLG network, we're going to pay you X amount per 1,000 view, similar to all the other networks, and done something of that nature. If you look at what Machinima has for their subscriber base, I think it's at like 200,000. Like Optic Gaming has more than 200,000 subscribers on their channel, and that's just one team. Machinima has 2 million, Machinima Respawn has 2 million. Machinima itself has like 5 or 6 million, and Major League Gaming, which has the best absolute gamers in the world, has 200,000. That is pathetic to me, like pathetic. And I think it's partially them not pushing that. Like they tried their own little VOD network. Remember that? Who knows what happened to that? I'm trying to remember what it was called. MLG something, where you could post your own videos. Do you remember that?
Game Room.
Game Room. That is right. And then what happened to that? It disappeared?
They shut it down, and all the videos are gone forever, including all my memories of them.
So their attempt was Game Room. That obviously was bad. Obviously, everyone is on YouTube, and they're trying to branch out now, but do you think like it's like too little too late, or because they have all of the best players, they can actually, push that and make it bigger? And then with that, should players be getting paid for creating content on MLG's network? Like if they have a channel and they're in the MLG network, should MLG be paying them? I personally feel like I don't know if they are or not. I'm just simply saying, hey, this is something that they should obviously do.
I'm not sure. I don't know the financials behind it enough to be able to really definitively say what MLG should or could do. I think that, like, looking at it just from a broad standpoint, they'd have to be able to match the pay rates for Machinima and Twitch and those kind of sites.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, they would need their own sponsors that are advertising in order to match those numbers, which I think would be really difficult.
Well, here's
I
the
mean,
thing.
like, beyond that, like, if they don't match it, then I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Well,
Unless
if
you
I'm
do
not
flat rate
mistaken,
type stuff, I don't know.
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, like in order to be an actual network within YouTube, like maybe you have to have a certain number of subscribers or whatever, but at some point in time, basically what you do is, this is just me talking broadly because I don't know all of the logistics behind this, but it at least makes sense for me, at least, as someone that produces content on YouTube, to say, okay, MLG is big enough to say, okay, we're going to network, we're going to take 100 of our top players and say, hey, all you guys have to do is post gameplay. You're going to get a shared revenue from whatever we make on the ads from Google. They don't even have to be served with MLG sponsors. They can be served from Google, AdSense or whatever. And we will split that with you, 50-50 or whatever rate they want to do. And that's another way for the players to make income. So that's all I want to touch on it with this, because I want to kind of break it down a little bit more and have some more, finer points for you guys. But, as we do with every show, what questions do you guys have? Obviously, we didn't have a big name that Call of Duty game this week, but, we do want to end with some interaction with you guys.
And while the questions are coming in, I just want to say that the way that MLG treated the whole game room thing was just abysmal.
Yeah.
Like, it just disappeared, and then all the videos were gone.
We're definitely.
And there was no warning. People couldn't download them. You still can't grab VODs from 05, 06, 07, 08. All that stuff's just gone. I assume it's sitting on MLG's server somewhere, but that stuff's just gone.
Someone says Battlefield 4 competitive. I'm gonna actually get Battlefield 4 and play it a lot.
I'm looking forward to the Virgin Gaming $1.6 million tournament for Battlefield 4.
On Battlefield 3, you mean?
No. It's Battlefield 4 now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They'll announce it. Just don't worry.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, Activision, you guys think you can announce this $1 million tournament? We're gonna do that with Battlefield. $2.5 million.
There's like, oh, what is Call of Duty offering? We'll double it. And then add a 0.
Oh, man.
Virgin Gaming money. In all seriousness, though, Battlefield doesn't have the same issues it's always had with large-scale battles and team size. It's difficult.
Chicks dig the bear. Oh, that's my shirt. I had to look kind of weird for that. Talk about your current games and anything Smite. I'm only playing Smite right now and Loadout. I have not fired up my Xbox 360 in maybe 10 days. Colin?
Smite. I want to hop on Halo tonight or tomorrow and play Team Throwdown.
Oh, yeah,
they added the competitive playlist for Halo, and I'm interested in checking it out. And I'm also interested in checking out the Majestic map pack once it comes out in little under a week.
Certain Affinity.
Those maps are seriously, like, I'm not even joking. Those maps are really freaking good.
Taking it from somebody that's in competitive scene says that. Now, if Ghost Ayame says that the maps are shitty, and then says that 343 or whoever that made the maps needs to rot in hell, what are you going to tell Ghost?
I don't think anyone reasonable is going to say the maps are bad.
They have to be unreasonable? They have to be the 2% forum community?
Well, no, you have those people that have just been writing off Halo since release. I think those people will still have snarky comments, but...
Okay.
Seriously, they're good maps.
Frag Nation hosting a BF3 tournament? Are they? I haven't checked. I'll take a look at that.
Cool.
Do you guys think that the XIM Edge is cheating? Is that the thing that allows you to play with mouse and keyboard on the console?
I think it is.
Yes, it is cheating.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, that is cheating.
It's not very... yeah, it's cheating.
It's cheating.
It shouldn't be. It should be able to plug in any mouse and keyboard into your Xbox and play, in my opinion.
Right. That's how it should be, but since it isn't, that's cheating.
Yeah.
Are you able to monetize Halo 4 vids yet? If you are not in a network, I believe you cannot. If you are in some networks or you have the ends with 343 or Microsoft, I believe, you can monetize your content on YouTube. Competitive Smite, possibly. We do plan on playing in some tournaments. We have been playing religiously.
We're still pretty poor, though.
Yeah. We're starting to beat some 30s.
Yeah.
Someone says, I have the XIM. You, sir, Darkstorm, are a cheater. Cheater.
That's almost as bad as, well, given how fast you can click, that's probably as bad as having a modded controller, too. Like, just sitting there spamming it to shoot real fast.
You don't even spam it. You just hold it down.
I mean, I'm just picturing like pistol and gears or hammer
Yeah,
bursts.
but you're not even spamming. You're just going like this. Like, you see my finger? It's not moving. This is what you do.
You think it would stay like that?
That's what mod is. That's what a mod is. Like,
I'm saying on a mouse.
Oh. Well, I don't know how it works on a mouse. You just hold down the click?
Pretty quick to rattle off 12 clicks.
It's faster than your thumb.
Yes.
For most people. I mean, like, this is just fact. Like, your ring finger and your index finger typically move faster than your thumb when you're rapid firing. So, I suck with the controller and I'm a PC player. I'm just giving you a hard time. Did you ever check out Dragon Nest? I sent you a message a while ago.
Dragon Nest?
I can't say that I have. Dude, I get a lot of messages. I actually got Forge from someone and sent me a message and was like, you should try out Forge.
I tried it.
What'd you think?
The movement's really cool. Like, you can do wall jumping and double jump and rocket jump and shit like that. But like, it's still at its core just a like WoW type game where you're just firing spells at each other. I felt like it took too long. Like, considering how much cool skill-based stuff they have, you have to hit people way too many times in order to get kills. It's like, it's consistency over time skill versus like twitch shot skill. Oh, it's pretty cool. What about the orb? That sounds like cheating.
That sounds too mystical.
It's probably like a trackball.
Are you looking it up?
I'm checking. I can't see it anywhere. Yeah, I'm not sure.
That might be it for all the questions. We got any more? Last minute?
Looks like we're good.
Looks like we're good. Have we played Gears of War?
Yeah, I played Gears 1, Gears 2, and Gears 3.
I didn't play any of those. I don't know what Gears of War is.
I regret one of those. I'll let you guess which one.
I'm going to end the stream with a question. Which Gears of War title did Skyllus regret
ever playing?
Regret ever playing.
Oh, man. I can't even say that because I won money playing it.
And yet you still regret it.
I regret that I had to win money on that instead of something else.
All right, guys. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in for this week's show. We'll be back next week. We're going to hit it with Major League Gaming's approach towards content and players. And we'll
probably hit the Sony announcement, too. Sony announcing console tomorrow, probably.
Yeah, so we'll be able to talk about that a little bit. And obviously another community topic. I'm very surprised at this week's past topics. There were some really close ones. Really close. Yeah, so I might put one back in there to see if we can talk about it some more. So, yeah, thanks, guys, for tuning in. Make sure to hit that follow button. We stream every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And you guys can follow us on Twitter at Arctic with a Y and at Skyzyn. That's Sky, Z-Y-N. I'll catch you guys later.
Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.